I had to go tell her that not only did I lose everything and disappoint her, but worse, I'd lost her house because I didn't take it out of my name and she would have to move. Well, my mom's response changed my life.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Tiff and Tony Show. Well, hello, everybody. We're here for another episode of the Tiff and Tony Show. We have a special guest, Tony. How are you doing? And we can introduce our guest.
I am very well, thank you very much. Yes, we're really lucky to have Mr. David Meltzer with us today. He's an awesome individual. I've actually been to a couple of his workshops. David, good afternoon. Why don't we just start off by you telling us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Dave Meltzer. I am an entrepreneur, a speaker, author, coach, executive producer of content, both social media content, TV, movie content. But my main purpose or mission through all of these devices is simply to empower others to be happy. I believe I have a capability of inspiring and educating and motivating people to make a lot of money in an abundant way, to help a lot of people, and most importantly, be happy and have a lot of fun doing it. And so I've had quite a journey of ups and downs, from rags to riches, back to rags, back to riches. And through that, I've learned a perspective to learn lessons. And I share those lessons and I create, hopefully, and illuminate what my journey has been to create radical humility that we all can live together in a world of more than enough.
I love that. That is fantastic. And our listeners, I know, will get so much from this. Very quickly, I'm going to jump straight into a question. What would you say your definition of success is?
Really simply, it's the ability to enjoy the consistent everyday, persistent without quit pursuit of your own potential. Too many people define their success by what others people think, by what other people want, by what's missing, by what they don't have or don't want. I simply focus in on pursuing my potential and consistently and persistently enjoying that by learning to love what I do through gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration.
That's awesome. Pure Game, our tagline is life played at full potential. And so we want to teach kids exactly what you just said there about living a life to your potential, not someone else's, to your potential. How would you teach someone to focus in on their own potential?
Well, number one, I tell them there's 3 objectives in order to pursue your potential. And those 3 are: number 1, do your best. Number 2, seek the lessons, learn something in everything you do. And 3, have fun doing it. And I think starting in a very simple format, especially with children, to tell them, look, we're going to put what you want to do, but I want you to promise me you're going to do your best, you're going to learn something, and you're going to have fun doing it. If not, we're going to stop until you figure out how. There's no reason to move forward until we stop and figure out how. And I'll give them the values that I have, but more importantly, just 5 daily practices to follow that will help them do their best and to learn lessons and to have fun. And those 5 daily practices are teaching them to know their what, their who, their how, their now, and their why.
I love that because I feel like we could practically use that either on the field with kids, hopefully as things start opening up and we can be in person again, and also just in our live sessions, Zoom sessions with kids. It's so practical. So I have another practical question for you. I know that one of the words that you like to use is abundance. You mentioned it earlier, and I was watching another interview actually of you, and you shared a story. You talk about living in a world of abundance, having a mindset of abundance where you can give and receive freely, and I know that a lot of us have trouble with that receiving end. I want to point out, though, that Tony, and actually a few episodes ago, the Tiff and Tony Show, shared that one of the things that he wants to do is transition from a mindset of lacking, I think he actually used a different word, but to a mindset of abundance. So what would you share, David, as some practical tools, like daily habits that we can do to actually get there? Because it's not a snap your fingers and happen overnight.
Not at all. I think number one of the skill sets is to identify what world you're living in. And the world is determined by your perspective. And there's 3 worlds. And at different times, we all live in these 3 worlds. The first world is a world of not enough. It's a scarce world. It's the world of why me? not the world of try me, the world of why me, where everyone's a victim, everything happens to you, there's not enough of anything for anyone, there's always so much more to get, and we've attached our emotions to an outcome and we're never happy. The second world to identify is the for me world. And this is a world that destroyed me in my 30s, a world that was just for me. I thought I was abundant. I thought that I lived in a world of more than enough, but I really lived in a world of for me, meaning I would buy things for me that I didn't need. I'd buy things for me to impress people. I'd even buy things for me or do things for me to impress people I didn't like. This is a scarce world, a world for me where there's never enough as well, just for me. And then finally, the giving and receiving relationship in that world of for me is people pretend to be abundant. I was a multimillionaire in my 20s. Everyone called me a philanthropist, a humanitarian, generous, but I wasn't. I gave away a lot, but it always had conditions and judgments tied to it. It always had a trade or a negotiation, even if it was an emotional trade or negotiation where I'd give for acknowledgement, recognition, some sort of quid pro quo. But instead, I learned, and I'll tell a quick story, Tiff. I lost everything, as you know, and the hardest part about losing everything was telling my mom. Not just because I thought she'd be destroyed and disappointed, but because I lost her house. Now, the only reason I ever wanted to be rich was I wanted to buy my mom a house and a car. 6 kids, single mom, 2 jobs. I get choked up today. I'm 53 years old, just thinking about how much she did for me. And yet I had to go tell her that not only did I lose everything and disappoint her, but worse, I'd lost her house because I didn't take it out of my name and she would have to move. Well, my mom's response changed my life. Instead of being in a world of to me, instead of being in a world of for me, she didn't break down, she didn't cry, she wasn't disappointed. She looked at me and said, "Are you okay? Can I help you? Do you need some money?" I was like, "No, Mom, I lost everything. You have to move." "Oh, I know. Are you okay?" All she cared about was me. That is the abundant world where she was receiving to give, not giving to receive. And when we have an abundant, confident, faithful perspective that things come through us with appreciation, meaning we add our value to it and then give it away. This is what creates the flow. This is what creates this abundance that I talk about. In other words, to have confidence and faith that there's more than enough of everything for everyone creates an unbelievable energy, a collective consciousness that creates this happiness that I so desperately am trying to empower people with.
So I've heard another story about your mom, and it was when you went to her for some career advice. And what you learned from that was that just because someone loves you doesn't mean they're going to give you good advice. So what would you say, what have you learned from that even further of like, how do we seek out positive advice and how do we use both our internal and external resources to make those decisions that can help us move forward in a positive way, in that abundant way?
Appreciate all advice, number one, especially if it comes from people who care about you, even if it's bad advice. And how do we know if it's good or bad advice? Is we have to take inventory of our own values. We have to know what we want personally, what we want experientially, what we want to give, and what we want to receive. And if we can take inventory of these values without being afraid of being a hypocrite or changing our mind, don't worry about telling people I didn't know what I didn't know. It's a beautiful superpower to illuminate your humility by allowing people to know that you don't know what you don't know. And you know what? I took your advice. I didn't take your advice. Maybe I learned something and you were right, or maybe I learned something and it's not aligned with me, or it is aligned with me now. But too many people are stuck in the past or stuck in general because they want to have their ego to say, I'm not changing my mind. I said this was going to be, I'm going to be a teacher no matter what, even though their values have changed. Take advice, especially from those who love you, with a handful of sand, right? A handful of sand. Thank you for caring about me and giving me that advice that the internet's going to be a fad and I should be a real lawyer, which is the actual advice my mom gave me.
Yes.
And I just said, thank you, Mom, for caring about me. I know from your position, that may be your perspective, but I'm going to let that piece of sand fall through my hand with appreciation. You've added value and a new perspective to me, but I'm still going to follow what I want according to my values. But I don't have to resent you or be offended by you. So many people, they use other people's experience to be resentful or offended, creating interferences, voids, and shortages and separation between a support system, a relativity that only inspires and encourages us for no reason at all. In other words, they waste their time, emotion, and relationships and money for no reason at all because of their ego. Not me. I take all advice like a handful of sand with great appreciation, and I move forward like I did and got involved in the internet and made my first $1 million 9 months out of law school.
That's impressive stuff and some great advice there. What you talk about reflects a great deal on self-awareness. I can tell you've done a lot of reflection and self-reflection. How do you go about that reflection? What advice would you give to a younger generation who's in this really busy world that's really deadly serious about success? How would you tell them about kind of turning inward and saying, this is how you should reflect?
Believe it or not, I'm an extremely spiritual person who's very pragmatic. And that's because I lived the majority of my first half of my life in complete scarcity and pragmatic being. I could outwork you was my philosophy, and math was my stability. But I've shifted that, but applied what I learned in the pragmatic world in order to effectuate this powerful thing that you're talking about. And the number one thing pragmatically is shift the paradigm of time. So for me, what's changed my life is to start my day at 9 p.m. every night. So the beginning of my day is 9 p.m. That doesn't mean I wake up at 9 p.m. That means that I'm at my highest point at 9 p.m. where I utilize an unwinding routine to put my body, mind, and soul in the best position to recover and to access information that I otherwise get in the way of. Meaning, I go ahead and have no negative energy, darkness, cool weather, no negative conversation or input or data. I unwind so that my body recovers in a better way, in a faster way, meaning I don't need as much rest. But two, when you sleep, there's no ego or consciousness in the way of what you're connected to. See, what paradigm shifts in life that makes it so easy for me is I spent so many decades trying to get healthy, trying to get wealthy, and trying to be happy. Instead of saying to myself, what is it that I'm doing that interferes with my health? What is it that I'm doing that interferes with my wealth? What am I doing that's interfering with my happiness? Because I know that I am connected and I am healthy, wealthy, and happy at all times. It's just I'm doing things to interfere with what I already am instead of trying to go out and get it. So when I can shift the paradigm to put myself in a position to plateau and grow every day, not to live the myth of Sisyphus, where most people feel like in life, they push a boulder all day long to the top of the hill, and then it just rolls down at night, and they wake up and it's at the bottom of the hill again, 9 to 5, living stuck in the same place with the same problems, the same temperature, no matter what they do, think, or believe, end up in the same place at the bottom of the hill. Not me. I utilize the paradigm of time in order to shift my perspective. I wake up at 4 a.m. at a higher frequency. I actually use meditation, but for young people, meditation means just practice being quiet for a couple minutes. There's no super secret woo-woo. Meditation scared me. I told people when they told me to meditate, I'm like, I don't got time for that. I got to make a lot of money. I got to be rich. I got to buy my mom a house. Get out of my way. You know, you're high on your mom's couch, sick if you're meditating. No, meditation just means give a few moments of quiet. And I use that to transcend all that great information that I ascertain while I'm sleeping into the real world. And then the only thing I ask of young people, take a baseline of when you feel good. Remind yourself when you feel good that this is my baseline. This is my place I got to be. So if I do something that makes me feel less than that baseline, don't try to resist it. Don't try to avoid it. Don't try to go over it, under it, through it. Don't try to oversell it, back end sell it, lie to it, or manipulate or cheat it. Simply stop, breathe for a few seconds, and then put yourself back into that baseline. Remember this, we have all these triggers that put into place the ego. The ego has a need to fight, to flee, to feed, or the other F word that Gary Vee uses, and I won't. But what happens when we're in ego is the blood leaves our brain. It takes about 90 seconds. And so now you're making critical life decisions with no blood in your brain. No wonder we end up in the wrong place with the wrong people at the wrong time. So what I ask you to do is, if you can find your baseline, identify when you're not at the higher self, and just stop, just be quiet. Put the blood back into your brain, use your higher level of thinking, your higher self, and you will plateau and grow, accelerate, compound the positive interest of life, and end up exactly where you're supposed to be at the right way at the perfect time, with a lot of money, a lot of happiness, and an ability to help many people.
That is phenomenal advice. And I'm going to take that myself. I love the fact of thinking of starting your day at 9 p.m. It's just awesome. I mean, I wake up early in the morning, I meditate, I do all of that sort of stuff, but never have I thought about starting my day at 9 p.m. to get that sleep and rest that I need to actually kick the day off. So I've got one question for you, just to wrap this up from me. If you could think of someone else who would be on this show, who would you challenge to be on this show?
I would challenge Tom Bilyeu to be on this show. I think he's most aligned with what you're trying to do in an mission, especially to empower our younger generation, to empower other people. And Tom has had such a great effect on my life, one of the best interviewers and interviewees that I know. And he has a pragmatic approach. You know, he's a multimillionaire, had a huge exit, started his own company, but he has such a great reconciliation between two different currencies: a currency of money, an objective energy that we put into the flow to get what we want. And most importantly, he reconciles it, as I try in my pursuit of my potential, with the currency of faith. Mm-hmm. See, what we both believe is you're exactly where you're supposed to be at the right place at the perfect time. I call that the law of gravity. And then he also believes in the law of Goya, which is get off your ass. You got to make things happen. And you got to be happy where you're at, but angle with everything you have to enjoy the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential. Angle to what you want. Pain, mistakes, failures are just indicators, turn signals. They're not stop signs telling you that you got a better place, a better position, a better situation to be in. And most importantly, reconcile the currency of faith, that you'll end up in a better place. When you believe that everything is happening to get you to a better place and a better purpose, then your purpose is overwhelming your pain at all times. And if your purpose is greater than your pain, you will learn to love everything you do. You will have the superpower, like me, of finding and seeking the light, the love, and the lessons in everyone and everything. Just like I see such beautiful light in both of you to liberate, that is liberated in others as well. That's why I'm so grateful to be here. What an extraordinary time, and I am blessed. Please, everyone, join me. I do free trainings every Friday. My books are free. All my exercises, guides are free. All you got to do is reach out to me, david@dmeltzer.com. I'm happy to give everybody a book. I'll sign it. I'll pay for shipping. Whatever you need, just please reach out. I answer it myself.
Well, thank you so much. That is a great way to end. We really appreciate you using some of your productivity for the day, spending time with us, and I hope you both have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in this week's episode of the Tiff and Tony Show. We hope you feel encouraged and motivated to keep growing with us. If you like what we do here at Pure Game, one of the best ways you can support us is by liking and sharing this video with friends on social media. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel using the button directly below this video on YouTube, and you can donate at our website, www.thepuregame.org. And with that, we'll see you right back here next week.